Alright, so it's pretty much done. Finish is on. Just as a reminder, tongue oil on the neck, just 3 or 4 coats. A little bit of, I wanted to keep it pretty smooth as much as I could. Wipe on poly on the body. The purple is RIT dye. After a bit of reading, I probably wouldn't do RIT dye again just because it may not be as color fast as some other things. It might fade. Live and learn. Next one will be hopefully more quality, but it was easy to work with. I got a decent finish out of it, so it looks good now. We'll see how it wears. The kit turned out pretty good. Everything lines up like it should. Bolts on pretty easily. The tuners, the tuners are kind of crap. I would probably replace them with something a little better. I'm gonna use these now and see how they work. They didn't line up all that straight when I initially put them on. If you look at it closely, you can see the ones kind of leaning over to the side, or the screws just don't line up all that well. I think probably should have fit them before, or at least fit all of them before I finished it. It's just so that I could have filled the holes and re-drilled them. Although, if I'm going to go through and put in new tuners later, I maybe would have had to do it again. So that might have been a step to do before I put the finish on. If you're doing this as I was doing this as kind of an experiment in building and filming and I don't know, talking to the camera, I guess, and so I didn't. If you have specific plans or something, I would probably say get the tuners on hand before you do the finish. Make sure everything lines up. Get all your holes drilled. I did the setup. The neck is, I had straightened it a bit for fret leveling. So the nut is cheapy plastic piece. I went and when I bought the new pickup, I bought a new nut for it, but it didn't fit. It was far too short. It fit widthwise and string spacing was fine, but it just wasn't tall enough to put the strings up over the board. So I'll try again. I didn't feel like shimming it. I could have done a piece of veneer underneath and glued that in and prop the nut up and put that nut in, and but this will work for now. Maybe use that nut for something else. The neck itself, the frets were pretty good. There's no obviously sharp ends or anything. That was pretty obvious when I was doing the finish, that I didn't need to go through and deal with that. They did need a bit of a leveling. There were a few. Got a tool that looks like this. It's a fret rocker. You can use an old credit card. You just probably cut it in a couple of spots so that you can get on the upper frets. But basically, you can check the height of the frets as they are to the ones next to it. This one had 4 or 5 spots that needed it, so I just did a level. I have the tools to do it, so it's not a huge deal. It is definitely an afternoon's worth of work, but put in your headphones and go for it. It's not rocket science, and especially with the fret crowning tool, it doesn't take too long to do that, and it's not it's just basically sanding, so it's not too bad in that way. Had to go through and put a radius on the bridge. There's some the little Allen wrench keys here, and you just give it the radius so that the board has a radius, and so the frets the saddles need to be radiused to match your board so that you can get your action lower and make it more playable. Intonation was fine. There's still plenty of adjustment left in those screws to go forward or way back. I put on some new strings. Experimenting with these. The kit strings I never even unwound. I just I didn't chuck them. I'm gonna keep them. I might need them for something, but they're certainly not going on the guitar. But everything else seemed fine. I did leave this plate off of the neck mounting. In the earlier videos you might have seen that it stuck out. It didn't fit flat on the heel of the body of the guitar, so I don't know why they would even have these, honestly, so I left that part out as well. I'm gonna have a buddy of mine do the sound test. I did replace the neck pickup with it's a Guitar Fetish gold foil. They're supposed to be pretty cool. It sounds okay in what I've got, but the best amp I have right now, the only amp I have right now is this one, and it's really only good for testing to make sure everything works. So I'll have a friend of mine who can actually play as well go through and do a quick sound test just to show it what it's like. The bridge pickup is the standard, the one that came with the kit. It seems fine, but like I said, I don't have anything awesome to really test it through. So we're gonna go with that for now. The replacement that I bought for it didn't fit in the route. I assumed that they were the same size, and they weren't. That's what happens when you assume, I guess. I could have easily routed myself some space to make that pickup fit, but I didn't check it before I did all the finishing and stuff, so, and the shielding on the cavities. I didn't want to go back and pull all that stuff out. I could go back and redo it if I decide that I want to. If I decide that this pickup is really terrible, I might go back and pull out that shielding and route myself some extra space and be done with it. But test fit your same with the tuners, test fit your hardware before you put the finish on. Everything else turned out pretty fine. I'm happy with it. I'm gonna play it a bit. I do have a Fender made in Mexico Telecaster that I will kind of test it against to see what kind of quality I'll get. I think I am about $250 or so into it with the new pickup and the finishing supplies and the kit itself. The finishing supplies, there is still a ton left over, so but it is an initial outlay that you will have to do if you don't have it sitting around already. I think the tongue oil was like 10 or 15 bucks, but I only used a quarter of it, and same with the wipe-on poly. It was probably, I think it was a little over 20, but same thing, there's still a lot of it left. You know, you could probably get 5 guitars out of it and be fine. So, but take that into account when you are budgeting your build. There were a couple of special tools that I used, but you can get away with, like I said, with that fret rocker, you can get away with an old credit card. I did use some nut files that I had that made getting the setup easier, but you could probably do the same thing with taking the nut in and out and sanding it down from the bottom as well. So I needed to make the slots a little bigger. For these strings are slightly different than, they're thicker on the low strings, so they needed to get the nut widened the slots anyway. So, but if you use regular strings, you'd probably be fine with what you have. I think that's pretty much it. I used all just kind of wipe-on finishes. I didn't do any spraying. I never touched the router or any other kind of tools. It was just hand tools and sanding, screwdriver, Allen wrench, that kind of thing. But you don't need anything totally specific. So it was a fun project. I'm stuck at home for quarantine, so it's a good way to pass the time. I've got other projects going. I'm going to do a set neck next, and we'll see what the difference is on that. I wanted to do kind of an easy thing first, and then we'll see what the challenges of that are. That one will be coming out eventually. I've got the kit on hand, but I haven't even dug that far into it yet. Looking at hopefully learn from my mistakes on this one and have all of the hardware on hand before I start finishing, just to make sure that those things work. So thanks for watching. We'll see you again.